Selecting the Lions back row must be one of Andy Farrell's biggest headaches heading into this tour of Australia. The sheer depth in these positions across the 4 home nations is outstanding, and selection will purely come down to which players suit the Lions system best. From explosive number 8s to tireless flankers, we'll analyse the stats, the form, and I'll give my take on how the Lions back row will challenge the Wallabies and which players will fill those famous 6, 7 and 8 jerseys. Let's get into it. So the Lions is a union of 4 different nations who use their back row slightly differently. For example, England are a low possession pressure game team who don't really want the ball. They want to squeeze you. They want to play a possession-based game, and they've got the most open kicks in play. They've got Tom Curry, who's top of the steal charts in the Six Nations. You've got Ben Earl, who's sitting in 3rd. And they basically will just want to unleash their fetchers. They want to squeeze you. They want to apply as much pressure at ruck time as possible, as much pressure on the floor as possible. They're a back row of scrappers. So Ireland use their back row in a slightly different way. They use their back row effectively to protect their best players, their best attacking players in terms of your 9, your 10, your outside backs, etc. Because they don't want those guys being tired for running those brilliant attacking shapes, as we've spoken about in one of the previous videos. They've also got a brilliant amount of passes in them in terms of that back row, get through so much work, so much old school back row work, but they've got brilliant hands at the line, so many tip passes, so many out the back passes to Prendergast, to Bundyaki, to Ringrose, etc. And they're a complete back row in my eyes. The way Scotland play means that their back row has to be dynamic, have to cover a huge amount of ground. They have to hit a lot of rucks, get to a lot of rucks from whether it's one touchline to the other and back again. Scotland play wide to wide, hit the middle, play another short side. So they have to be fit, they have to be agile, and they have to be dynamic. And the amount of ruck entries that Scottish back row is hitting in this Six Nations so far are off the charts in terms of having to keep the tempo of the ball high, having to go multi-phase. Scotland are a possession-based team, so they want lots and lots of long phases to test you in those wide channels. So the way Scotland play when they go wide to wide, they have to make sure that their back row are fit, they're dynamic, and they have to make sure that they're getting to lots of rucks to keep the speed of ball high for their scrum half and for Finn Russell in particular. So dynamic is the word that I'd use to describe Scotland's back row. Where Wales are at, their back rows having to do a lot of dirty work in terms of a lot of tackles, a lot of defensive rucks hit, and a lot of work in slowing the opposition ball down. And it means that they're excelling in that type of work in guys like Jack Morgan and Tommy Reffel, etc. But that's going to take its toll on you. So their ability, the Welsh back row, to affect the ball, both sides of the ball, so that they may have to slow the ball up, they may have to be good in contact to keep their speed of ball high, is probably where Wales are at the minute in terms of how they're deploying their back row. They've got really good line-out options in their back row in terms of Faletau, who's up near the top of the charts in terms of line-out takes, and guys like Wainwright who are real sort of line-out specialists as well. So that's how Wales are deploying their back row at the minute. I think Andy Farrell's Lions back row are going to play in a very traditional Irish type model, I suppose, in terms of they'll want back rows to be able to make those tip passes at the line, to pull that ball out the back to the 10 who calls it, to win those post-contact meters and work rate, which is everything synonymous with the Irish model. But what he does have the luxury of is being able to choose from other nations. So being able to choose potentially an out-and-out fetcher whose sole job is to make a mess at every single breakdown and win as many penalties as you can, given that you've got that balance in the back row to do the rest of the work for you. So with Wales, I played behind a back row which was full of balance, whether it was a Lydiate, who was renowned for just getting through a ton of work defensively and just saving your energy for like the Irish model we've spoken about, whether it was Tipperick, who had the silky skills of a backer, or an outside centre, Warburton, who was just going to get you penalty after penalty, and Faletau, who could basically do everything. And I suppose for me as a 10, what was so good was having that balance and knowing that you could rely on, whether it was Warburton to win you a penalty, to win you 3 points to win the game, whether it was unleashing Faletau or Tipperick in the middle of the park with their silky skills or their ability in the wide channel to beat people and take people on, or whether it was someone like a Lydiate who was just unbelievable at getting through the graft and just not allowing your shape and allowing everything that your game does, whether it's territory-based, possession-based, just to function. Because people in that back row, you need people who are just going to work and work and work. And someone like Lydiate was a brilliant example of that. So that's why I think this back row, or the best back rows that I've played with, have had a real balance and a bit of everything in it, not just three of the same people or very similar people. So Tour Watch connected by Vodafone, and my picks for the Lions back row, starting at number 8, is Caelan Doris. He's Andy Farrell's captain at Ireland. Knows him incredibly well. I think before the Wales game, it was a ridiculous number of consecutive starts in an Irish number 8 jersey. His ability to win post-contact meters, his ability to show the ball, his ball movement is absolutely superb. It's as good as any sort of centre out there, really. The ability to show on the inside, pop on the outside, to show on the outside, show on the inside, and create a one-on-one and just win those hard meters is so... That's a skill in itself for a number 8. Any of your best or the great number 8s that you think of, which have worn a Lions jersey or have been in successful teams, have had that ability to win hard yards and hard meters. And Caelan Doris is certainly that. And also is just his ability to bring people into play, to link up with his backs as well, and just connect up. He's a brilliant player who's kind of got a little bit of everything in there. He's not the absolute biggest bloke you're going to come across, but manages to just find one-on-ones, win meters, and win crucial turnovers. And he's been involved in so many big games over the last few years, whether it be for Ireland or Leinster. And I just think he's the man at number 8 where you probably think there's not a huge amount of debate around that position. I think he's pretty much set in stone. A huge talking point is that he's obviously Andy Farrell's captain at Ireland, but will he also be the Lions captain this summer in Australia? Let me know in the comments below. So before we continue with our Vodafone Tour Watch, some special mentions to players who haven't quite made my starting back row selection for the tests, but who are exceptional players and should still feature in that Lions squad this summer. I mean, Jack Conan probably gets in most other teams around the world, given his quality, his experience of touring in 2021. And I think he makes the squad, and probably if anything happens to Caelan Doris, he probably just slots right in, given his quality. Jack Morgan, who's looked exceptional in a squad that has been, struggling, if we're being honest, in terms of his work rate, the amount of tackles he's putting in, the amount of rucks he's hitting, the amount of turnovers he's winning for his team. And just imagine what he could do in a team full of the best from the British Isles. Ben Earl, one of England's most dynamic and most impressive players for quite a few years now, his ability to pinch balls, his ability to beat defenders, to get teams on the front foot is surely going to be an asset that the Lions will want to invest in over the summer. Scotland's Rory Darge, starting to become one of the best in the business in terms of, won the URC title with Glasgow last year. His ability to hit countless number of rucks and just do a load of the dirty work and keep the speed of ball high for his halfbacks is a skill that the Lions will no doubt need this summer. And his ability at the amount of passes he makes at the line as well is something that is going to get him in that squad, I'm sure. So finally, and it's probably a little bit of a wild card, given that he's not actually playing international rugby at the minute, is Jack Willis, who's been absolutely on fire for Toulouse this year, playing in the best team in the league, probably the best team in Europe, averaging 2 turnovers a game in the top 14, and just looks absolutely incredible. It's a travesty that he's not playing for England at the minute, given the eligibility criteria, but he is eligible for the Lions this summer. The one thing that may count against Jack is that he's likely to be in that top 14 final at the end of June, which means he may well miss the first week or so of tour. Something that actually happened in 2017 where Lee Halfpenny had to sort of choose whether he was going to play in the top 14 final or come on tour and be part of the squad from the start. So that could be something that really makes things a little bit more complicated for Jack as well. So back to my selection, and at Blindside Flanker, I've gone for Tom Curry. Just an absolute warhorse in terms of, basically, he's like an extra winger on kick chase. The amount of work he puts in terms of chasing kicks, putting pressure on people, and just an absolute menace at the breakdown. Is going to counter ruck. I mean, he's just an absolute brilliant stealer. He's top of the charts in the Six Nations for the amount of steals. Just doesn't give you any free rucks in terms of whether it's in the wide channel, whether it's up the middle. And it's just so confrontational. Loves a little bit of the the feisty stuff in terms of grappling and pushing and shoving. And I think that keeps him on the edge. It keeps him firing. So the amount of penalties and the amount of big penalties that he wins, whether it's Sale, whether it's England, whether it's the Lions, is just incredible. When you're under pressure, you want a guy who rolls his sleeves up. And Tom Curry is absolutely that man. Like we've mentioned, England play very much a territory-based game, a low possession-based game. They rely on guys like Tom Curry to go and turn territory into points at the breakdown and putting pressure in that way. And he's an absolute master of his trade, and someone who I think will be so important for the Lions this summer in terms of his work rate, his hunger, his I suppose his lack of care for his own body. He'll put his head in where it hurts, and just a brilliant rugby player to have on the pitch too. And like I said, he's as quick as some wingers in terms of quick, strong, dynamic. And he's going to be an absolute handful in that Lions back row. Andy Farrell normally quite likes having a line-out option in his back row, whether it's Tyke Byrne, whether it's Peter O'Mahony. But I think that they'll play Maro Itoje and Tyke Byrne in the second row come test time. And I think that Tom Curry has been absolutely exceptional this Six Nations and has probably played himself into that test team. And interestingly enough, England have actually used Tom Curry as a line-out option now and again as well. So that's just another tick in his box. And I'm so excited to see how he goes. My pick for Openside Flanker, Josh van der Flier. Former World Player of the Year, I think back in 2022. Probably the most complete back row in terms of he's involved in everything, whether it's little pops at the line, whether it's support lines, whether it's beating people. His leg drive in contact and his post meters in contact is absolutely exceptional. He works really well with Caelan Doris from a defensive point of view in terms of whether it's Doris making a choke tackle and Van der Flier getting involved on that, whether it's Doris chopping someone and Van der Flier getting over the ball or counter-rucking. His ability to work at pretty much every breakdown is absolutely off the charts, whether it's a counter-ruck, whether it's a jackal, whether it's a slowing the ball up, whether it's an effective tackle. He becomes the glue in that back row, gelling everyone together because he's kind of that complete back rower. He's got that ability to roll his sleeves up. The amount of work he gets through, whether it's 4, 5, 6 phases on the spin, he's involved in every single phase that he could possibly be at. So it's not just making a tackle. His second efforts, third efforts in tackles and in phases is something to behold. And if you sort of think for argument's sake, if it's 1918 in the last test with 5-10 minutes to go, you want Josh van der Flier in your back row, making counter-rucks, making jackals, making tackles, busting through tackles, charge downs, whatever it is. He's kind of got it all at the minute. As you look at the other side of the ball from the attacking point of view, he's so used to this Irish system in terms of the little pop passes, the little out-the-back passes, the footwork before contact, the movement of the ball, his ability to win meters post-contact and support lines. His support lines are absolutely brilliant, and the amount of busts he makes and the amount of offloads he makes himself, but also receives because of knowing where the play is going to be is exceptional. He's an intelligent player, and like I said, I think he's really that glue that's going to form that back row and be able to work with the likes of your Caelan Doris and work off him sort of thing. So I think that's really important. I think you want a player who's going to roll their sleeves up. I think you want a player who's going to work their absolute socks off, go after phase. And that's what a back row is. When I played 10 against Josh van der Flier, you never had a moment to rest. He was in your face, whether it was a charge down, whether it was pressuring you to turn the ball back inside, whether it was hurrying you and not giving you time to look up and find a good kick or a good pass or the right decision. He was an absolute nightmare to play against. And just the physical aspect of him, just an absolute beast in terms of speed, power, and ability to just beat people and hurry people. And he's certainly someone that I would want in my back row if I was taking the field. What do you think of the balance of my back row? Let us know in the comments. And once again, thanks to Vodafone for powering today's video.
Pod. Rugby pod.